That's what you don't want to happen.
You are watching a master at work.
Alright, so I'm going to show you how to install your front main seal on any LS GM Gen 3 or 4 small block, or just Gen 3 or 4 LS based engine. I powder or bead blasted the cover, and then obviously cleaned out the edges with brake clean and a rag. And make sure that it's clean. The seal is a seal. See if I can find the national seal. So what you do is this side goes down, this side's the inside, like so, and you can just use your hands or a mallet. I'm just going to use this cover, basically this little lid, since it's soft plastic, push down evenly. Alright, so what I did is carefully pushed it in as much as I could around with my fingers, and then obviously there still was a little lip, so I just kind of evenly, lightly tapped with this rubber mallet. To get it down, and it doesn't really look like it goes anyway, so I just lined it up. Obviously make sure you don't hit the plastic locator, but as you can see, it's pretty flush. I don't see any issue with it sticking up anywhere. So that's how you install the seal, and I ran my finger around it just to make sure that it was like seated, It looks like it's seated pretty evenly, and I made sure that this lip is still in there and the locator hasn't come off. Just make sure I didn't put it in backwards, because that would suck. Alright, cool. I see that this side out, so we're good. It's right here. It says this side out. You can't really see it, but we're good. Locator's still in. Might just push it flush, honestly. I'll do that, but yeah, that's how you install your rear main seal. And then obviously when you put the cover back on, you straight edge align the edges, and then obviously finger tighten all the bolts. My whole thing is I would think you would pull these down first and then do them in even spacing. So, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but yeah, that's that. Alright, so after doing some further research, just because something didn't sit right with me, so these little pry parts, they seem okay, when you do it flush, but the thing I don't understand about it is if this is tapered, so obviously it's wider up top, you can see, and it goes down in like a tapered section. The thing I don't understand is how that would seal if it's flush. And if you look behind the cover, there's like locators. So like there's a shoulder inside of here that's got, depth. And when you hit the seal flush on the front, there's a gap in here of depth. And obviously these locator, whatever these things are, these little forks have a gap. I mean, right now they don't. They have a little gap, but not much. So when you hit the seal all the way down, I feel like it bottoms out on the shoulder like it's supposed to. And the front doesn't have, the front has a shoulder, but when you bottom out the front seal into the cover, it's flush. You can't go any farther. When you flush this, it can still go farther. It's like I literally pushed the seal and my fingers pushed it in farther. So I was like, I've seen all kinds of videos of people putting it in flush in the rear main and, saying it works, but my whole understanding of this whole concept seems to me that it's supposed to be bottomed out, and the whole thing locates with the little forks, and if you watch videos of the seals being installed with like the Sac City Corvette Alignment ones or the Mr. Gaskets, they're like hitting the edge of the seal. And those guys that are installing them, they don't stop until they hear it bottom out. So that's my whole logic behind that. Like, it's pushing the seal in evenly with the installer, not the case or the cover. It's pushing the seal in evenly until it's bottomed out. You hear them say, oh, watch for the change in pitch and da-da-da. That's how you know it's fully installed. And not to oil it because it's Teflon and it'll press seal. Well, obviously, like, that's a tapered groove. So when you push it down, it compresses it and it seats itself. So that's how I feel like the Teflon would seat, is it has to have tension. So obviously it does that. It just doesn't make sense to leave it flush on the rear main. The front, obviously, if you look at it, you'll see. But that's just my thoughts. Obviously there's a little gap in here, but it is what it is. You know, that's probably for the snout of the oil pump or stuff like that to seal the oil pump. But I'm gonna keep this locator on, obviously, and then align the cover with the straight edge. And yeah, so we'll see if it leaks, and I don't think it will. But if it does, oh well, it's a cheap mistake. No big deal. I just don't want to spend $60 on an alignment tool when I'm only going to use it once. So I'd rather spend, 10 or 15 bucks on a seal 2 times than have the alignment tool, so, and figure it out myself. So yeah, that's that. Alright guys, so today on this video we're going to put on a lot of these parts. Did the cover gaskets, like the rear and front main timing seal. And then I'm just reading my book here. But we also got the high pressure, high volume 10296 milling pump we're going to also put on here. I got the LS2 timing chain, all that stuff. Hopefully get the covers done. And then also we're going to move to start gapping these rings. Because I got that. I got this tool I borrowed, the ring gap tool. And I have these Hastings rings. So we'll see how close they are in spec. But yeah, and then also plastic gauge the rod bearings. So yeah, and go from there. So we got the oil pump lined up. What my wife did is I just kind of obviously relayed the instructions to her, but she's way smarter than me because these are a little too wide, so she kind of trimmed them down so they fit these shims. And so we put them in between the gear housing and the crank, and then the outside bolts, basically, in 3 spots. And then I torqued these cover bolts to 18 foot-pounds. And then put assembly lube in there, obviously, because you want it primed. And then yeah, now we're going to put the cover on. Alright, so I'm going to put the rod bearings in on the rod and do plastic gauge basically. Just gotta find it here. Here's my box of parts. There we go. Got your rod bearings here. You don't want to touch them with your fingers because your fingers have oil. And oil contaminates stuff. Your skin oil contaminates things. Pretty sure you just lined up the tangs on the rod. So that's what we're gonna do here. So actually, let's make sure you just line up the dowels basically like this. Make sure they're flat. Yeah, so basically what you want to do is, see these tabs, they only go in one way. Stock rods and stock rod bearings don't have chamfers, so you can put them in any way, it doesn't matter. Top or bottom, they're the same. You can only put them in one way, obviously, because of this bearing tang. So, and then also the crack cap design that goes plastic gauge on there. Let's see if you can even see it, it's pretty freaking tiny. You can't. So what I'm going to do is actually just plastic gauge it. I gotta put the rod cap on though. So what I'm going to do is actually just set this like so. So it only goes on one way, don't touch it. And guide the piston up basically. Like so. Probably want to rotate the crank just a little bit. Plastic gauge is annoying, by the way. Alright. Let's see if I can guide this up without frickin' making the plastic gauge wiggly around. So, you don't want to move the crank, by the way, because if you do, then it'll F up your readings. And once that's tight, you get a kind of rubber mallet it down, so you get it to see. Because if not, it'll. You don't want to pull. You don't want the rod bolts to pull the cap on. You want to seat it and then torque it. So yeah, you can kind of tell. So what you do is torque them to spec. I think it's 40 foot-pounds. Let me actually grab my. So you want to make sure you do it in one sweep here. Just make sure they're torqued. There you go. plastic gauge and freaking measure what it's at. So I'm gonna cut a little sliver off of here real quick with the scissors. And we're gonna use the inch side, because I like to use the inch side. America, basically. Actually go on the other side here and look. Alright. Looks like our rod clearance is 1,000th. A little bit bigger than 15. Yeah, it's definitely 1,000th. Point. Alright, so make sure you do the plastic gauge before you guide the rod up, unless you have an extra pair of hands to help. So I go in order. I don't like to do banks. Just do piston 1, 2, you know, all that stuff. 1, 2, 3, blah blah blah. So kind of give it a little bit of a wipey here. It's not really like super clean, it's still oiled, but I'm gonna put it in. Alright, there we go. That's what we want right there. So I'm gonna guide the rod up so you don't freaking nick the bore. It's kind of tough. There we go. Kind of clunky, but whatever, you know. Such is life. Make sure you put this guy on correctly. Oh, you bastard. Of course. Of freaking course it would do that. It's kind of annoying. I'm actually going to leave it like right there. Another thing of plastic gauge, I guess. Freaking jeez. Plastic gauge kind of sucks if you don't have a steady hand like me, so. Don't you do it, you bastard. I see you trying to fucking do that to me. Alright, so I showed you guys just 2 rods, the front 2 that I did. Plastic gauge are 1,000th clearance on both of them with the ERP rod bolts, and I did the other ones. They're all 1,000th. That's crazy. So yeah, basically right now I'm going to flip the engine over and start putting the rings in and gapping them and seeing where they're going to be at. So yeah, we're going to get to it. Alright, so what you want to do is put the ring in after you clean the bore. You want to measure it 1 inch down and use the piston to square it. You know, make sure the gaps are equal. I measured this at 17 thousandths out of the box. I need to get it up to my ring spec, which is 0.0245. So I'm going to go 0.025. It's better to leave it wider than shorter, so I'm going to do that. Alright, so you want to square the ring and you want to cut into it. You know, basically one side only, don't do two, just cut into one. So you kind of square it up against this, hold it like that. Alright, so I got all the top compression rings and second compression rings gapped. It took freaking like almost 3 hours. It was annoying. Labeled them, so they're also stuck together. So one top, one second, and then we got the oils in here, the support rail and the actual other rails. What I'm going to do, I'm actually going to put these in this box and then put them later, and I need to get a piston ring expander, and then I'll clean everything and then put the rods in. But so after that, move to the balancer. I'm gonna put the stock oil pan back on. Got some gaskets, pretty much just waiting on parts. So got my compressor, my spring compressor over there, piston ring. But this is the backyard or garage, home garage way of building an LS, and it works pretty good. Cleanliness is next to perfection. That's how stuff works. It's cleanliness. So yeah. Alright, so as you can see, I aligned the rear timing cover. It's torqued to spec. Seal's a little deep, but it looks like it's gonna work. So I got the engine all back together for the most part together, and the rings gapped, the front cover's on, oil pump's on, rear cover's on, rear and front seals are in, crank is in obviously, and then tomorrow I'm gonna do the rods. Pistons, piston rings, rod bearings. Hopefully the bottom end will be together. But thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you think of this. Install the oil pump, gap the rings, check the rod clearance. The next video is going to be putting in the rods and pistons and putting the rings on, and putting the top end together after the bottom end's secured. So it's coming together.